Here. Happy Monday. Happy last week of January. It has gone by so fast. I am really excited to be talking with Scott Wells with the Conversion Formula. He has got a radically different, cool way of looking at marketing senior living. We are going to get into it here in just a minute. Scott, welcome. Let's start with, so you and I first met, I guess, at a traffic and conversion summit in San Diego, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. And we just really hit it off. You were doing some amazing things for mostly at that time, smaller senior living organizations. And I'd like to have you just sort of talk about your journey and your view of senior living, and we'll have a conversation.
That sounds great. Well, thank you very much for having me, Steve. I think this is long overdue. I actually got our Facebook friends anniversary. So we just became Facebook friends 4 years ago today. So I thought that was kind of fortuitous for today. Yeah. So, I mean, my journey in senior living has been about a 12-year journey. We started about 12 years ago creating conversion tools and software, and really have evolved since that point to providing all different types of solutions, mainly out of need that was created out of success. And so that's really been, our progression, or our genesis was started with big communities, then went to more smaller communities. And we met at Traffic and Conversion Summit. Then we met at the RAL National Academy, RAL NatCon is what it's called, and really hit it off there. And then when COVID hit, we kind of stopped going to conferences together. And then we've kind of transitioned from the RAL side back to the bigger communities now that people are kind of back in the saddle and marketing again. And, what a beautiful opportunity that most senior living communities have that, frankly, they're not taking advantage of right now. I think that's part of the challenge, is that there's so much opportunity out there, and we're marketing in a way that is really antiquated. And we're trying to bring those same types of, the digital traffic and conversion summit, marketing funnels, like understanding every other thing that other industries are doing, the marketing tactics and strategies and software that other industries are doing. How do we bring those inside of senior living to create a consumer journey that consumers are, frankly, they're expecting, and we're not providing it for them? And so that's really what this is about.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this, because I think when I look at how senior living is marketed today, what I see is everybody acknowledges that we've shifted from sort of an analog paper snail mail to a digital world, and something like 60-70% of all leads are coming digitally. But it feels like mostly what's happening is that we've sort of taken that old analog stuff, turned it into digital products, but we haven't really taken full advantage of kind of some of the things that are out there. So let's sort of maybe the best way to start is, let's actually assume that I'm a senior living operator and I'm coming to Conversion Formula and saying, hey, how do you give me, I've got two things that I want. I want more leads and I want higher quality leads. How do I do that?
Well, yeah, that's a loaded question.
It's a huge question, I know.
It's a huge question. It's a huge question.
Well, we can't do it all in half an hour, but we can at least have an overview, right?
Hey, we can dig into a lot of it in a half hour. So let's kind of look at how most communities are marketing right now. Most communities, the way they're marketing right now is they're dumping a ton of budget into paid media, mainly Google ads. And when they're getting clicks on Google, those people are coming to the website. There's not much for people to do on their website. So their website converts at maybe 0.5% or maybe 1%. And so the thought is, well, more budget, because that's going to get us more traffic, instead of understanding how to maximize the spend that you're doing on paid media, on Google ads. And so that's really the problem. And then when that does not work, what people are relying on is a place for mom. And this is the challenge that this industry has, is that we've gotten into this cycle, and it's a fundamental mindset shift that needs to happen, because there's an incentive structure for the salespeople, for the sales and marketing directors that is not in alignment with filling a community the right way. And then when you're spending tons of money on paid media, but not doing the things on the back end. And what I mean by doing the things on the back end are understanding the journey that people are on, understanding that people can be at different stages of the funnel. They could be at awareness, they could be at consideration, they could be at the decision-making process. You want to be able to capture leads at every single step of that process. And when you do that, then now that you've gotten the traffic, now that you've gotten the conversion, now you need to automate lead nurturing. And so understanding where people are in the process is vital to that nurture process. If you're communicating to everyone the same way, well, some people are going to get upset and some people are going to be fine, but it's not the most efficient way to actually move consumers through the process. And so that's the first step that needs to happen. It's a mindset shift out of, listen, everybody agrees that a place for mom is not good for the industry. Everyone to a T. Maybe some people won't say it publicly, but everyone who I talk to, probably everyone who you talk to, agrees that it is not good for the industry. It's not good for the consumers. It's not good for the communities and the companies running these senior living communities. However, that's where we get the majority of our leads, and we continue to feed that beast. Inside of that, the challenge that has come from that is that when communities get leads from a place for mom, the mentality is, hey, we've got 1 hour to get on the phone with these leads, otherwise they're dead. The challenge that has now created is that that's how we're treating all of our leads. All of our leads, if we don't get a hold of them very quickly, then they're not good leads. And now we need more leads. So this whole idea of needing more leads, we do need more leads, but we need to maximize the value of each one of those leads first. And that's the mindset shift that a lot of communities need to make, is getting away from just dumping money into Google ads and getting away from dumping money into a place for mom. That's proven that that's not working. I mean, I don't think that's a controversial topic right there. That strategy just isn't working very well for communities, and it's certainly not working for the families and the consumers and the residents and people who are trying to go through this transition process. So that's
okay. So I want to stop you for just 1 second here. You said something that I hadn't really kind of thought about this before, but I think is worth talking about. So we've got this speed to lead mentality, right? So everybody's got, your lead comes in, got to get to it. There's data that says that speed to lead is important, right? But the thing I find myself wondering, and maybe you'll say I'm wrong about this, is that if I've got a speed to lead mentality, it also means that I'm going to put a lot of pressure on that prospect to do something when maybe they're not ready. And I actually end up turning them off because I haven't really understood where they're at. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, speed to lead is very important. You need to communicate with leads, and you need to nurture leads, and you need to give them the information that they're ultimately expecting and looking for. However, if you do not talk to that person in 1 hour, that does not mean it's a dead lead. It might mean that they're in the research phase and they're higher up in the funnel and they don't want to talk to a salesperson yet, period. That communication then needs to be more automated. Email, text messages, content, value-driven messaging. Get inside the conversation that they are having at the stage that they are at on their journey. This is a long sales cycle. This is a huge, huge decision for people, right? It's for the residents, it's typically the last big decision that they're making. They're moving out of their home for 40, 50 years. And obviously I'm speaking in generalities here, but they're selling a home that they've lived in for probably 40, 50 years. Maybe the kids are selling the home that they grew up in. And so this is a big shift for people. And we want people to make a decision right away. It's like, okay, some people, if they're bottom of the funnel and ready to make that decision, then great. Speed to lead, it is absolutely vital. Now, the challenge becomes is that you want to capture leads at all points in the funnel, because if you don't, guess who does? A place for mom. If you don't want to capture leads at the top of the funnel because they're not ready to make a decision, guess what? You're going to pay for that lead at the decision-making process because a place for mom captured them and you didn't when you had the opportunity. And so speed to lead can mean a lot of different things. It can mean getting them on the phone if they really want to talk to someone. The other thing it could mean is that you are nurturing them and communicating them with relevant messaging at their stage of the process that they are in. And that is where there's a breakdown inside of the incentive structure, inside of the marketing automation, inside of just the mentality and the culture that has been pervasive is like, we got to get speed to lead. And then if they're not, they're done. We deactivate them, we kick them out. And now we need more leads. We need more leads. If you want higher quality leads, then understand where they are at in the process, understand what conversation they are having, what are their pain points, what are their fears, what's driving this whole process, and where are they at. Then you can start to have extremely relevant conversations with them, even though they're not talking back to you. You're communicating with them, but they gave you their contact information. They said, yes, I want you to market to me. Now, what do? Do you say, come for a tour, come for a tour, come for a tour, come for a tour? You should come for a tour. Or do you say, hey, we understand the pain that you're having. Here are the things that are going to happen during this decision-making process. You know, if it's an adult child, you know what they're dealing with. If it's the resident or the spouse themselves, you should know what they're dealing with, and you're going to communicate to them appropriately.
So I want to dig a little deeper into this. I think that you've described such a perfect challenge that people have is, I do all this stuff. I drive people to my webpage, and almost everybody has got some sort of they've got two things. They've got a contact form, and most people have some sort of a chat bot that's primarily designed to capture name, address, phone number, email, right? But I also hear from consumers that when they go to senior living websites, the thing that frustrates them is they don't get very much help in terms of trying to figure out what they need, what the next step is. So let's just talk a little bit about kind of best practices for your website in order to actually, be helpful to these people.
Yeah. So first thing is you have to generate traffic, right? You have to get eyeballs to your website. So how do you actually do that? And then I'll get to the things once we're on the website. So you need to optimize your digital profile. So you need to optimize your website. You need to get your listings and citations. You need to get all those things in line, your Google business profile. If you're not doing those things, you're not going to get any traffic except for Google paid media, which is very expensive if you haven't figured that out by now. But if you don't do that, you're not even in the game yet. So you have to get in the game. You got to get people to your website. Okay. So the second phase, once you have traffic, now you need to convert. And you're right, Steve. What most senior living communities, and it's like you can go to 50 of them and 48 of them look identical. And that's the challenge that consumers have, is they're not identical. They're not identical at all. They just are in a cookie cutter approach to marketing instead of understanding, hey, who do I serve? Who specifically do we serve, and why do we serve those people, and why do they belong in our community? And now how do we get that messaging out? And so that whole idea of, yeah, we're not getting very much help on the website because it's a contact us or schedule a tour form or sign up for our newsletter. Yeah, a lot of people want to do that. The people who want to schedule a tour, yes, they're super urgent. They're probably high acuity. Something bad happened. They're ready to make a move right away. You still want to capture those leads too, but you want to capture the people who are 6 months, a year, 2 years away from moving in. And then through your marketing, you condense that sales cycle down. And you do that by having specific conversion tools. How do you have conversion tools? Well, again, you go back to what conversation are they having? What fears do they have? We created the care assessment in 2012, I think is when we first, or 2011 is when we launched the Smart Choices tool, is what we used to call it. But it was a care assessment because most people don't know what level of care they want. They need. They don't know the difference between assisted living and memory care. They don't know the gray area between the two of those. They don't understand independent living with home health or independent living and then going into assisted living. They don't understand these differences. So if we can give them that answer, they're willing to give you their contact information. 98% of people who start our care assessment finish it because they want this information. And so it's something that is inside of their head. So that's the next part, is you have to convert people. And that conversion is not just from website visitor into website lead. Now, once you have a lead, again, this gets back to, what are you doing with that lead? Do you understand where they are in the process, or can you start to figure that out? And the way that you do that is then by having automated email and text messaging that is going to gently move people through the process. Chatbots, I don't like chatbots. I just personally, my preference, it's very clear that they're not necessarily there to help you. They're there to guide you a little bit, but mainly they're there to get you your contact information. You want to switch that relationship around. You want to provide immense value for contact information. Now, the consumers are getting that information. They're getting answers to the burning questions that they have. You are moving them through the sales process, and now you get permission to market them. Then from there, then it's, now you got to close. You have to have the human connection side of it. And that's up to the tour and creating a positive experience and, wrapping some emotion around the event. But that's really the process. Is you got to get eyeballs to the website, and then you have to convert. And that conversion process is a long, drawn out process. And that's where the disconnect is. Senior living community has moved to, nope, don't like that lead, don't like that lead, don't like that. Nope, they don't want to talk to me in an hour. Nope, swipe left, swipe right. More leads. When the reality is, we had a conversion tool. You and I have talked about this, floor plans and pricing. We use it as a gated technology. Put in your email and information, you get floor plans and pricing. You get to see all that information. 10% of the people who went through that process clicked call to schedule a tour. So the other 90% of people who went through that process, 5% gave bad information. 90% of those people were still solid leads. We just needed to nurture them for a lot longer, but 10% already wanted to schedule a tour just based on that information. And so you never know when someone's going to be ready to pull the trigger. You always got to be there ready to go.
So one of the things I find fascinating about this, I found fascinating when we were talking about this earlier, is that you're actually doing some things that feel counterintuitive to me.
Right.
Meaning that there are some pieces of information that most, or at least many operators provide by just going to the website. That you basically charge them for. And when I say charge for, I mean charge an email address and a name in order to get that with great success. So what you said earlier is that you create great value for people, right? And when you create value, they reward you with this contact information.
Right.
And I'd like you to actually just sort of dig a little deeper into it. And maybe the depth of this really goes back into this whole idea is when somebody goes to consume senior living, what is it they're thinking about? What are they worried about? What are they trying to figure out?
Yeah. Steve, I think you had two articles. I created something called the Resident Value Journey 10 years ago, right? And this is part of the challenge, is that not many communities and not many marketing agencies, for that matter, have mapped out what is that whole entire consumer journey that someone's going through. And so you created an article about that. So that's part of it, is understanding this entire journey. So then now you understand the different stages. The other side of that is that, when you are pulling information, well, I'm saying, let me back up. If you don't get information, when someone gets to your website, it is hard to get traffic. You're either paying a lot by a Google click, paid media click, or they happen to find you on Google Business Profile. Maybe they saw something on social, something like that, but they made it to your website. Now your job is to have an exchange of value, because if you don't, and if you give things away for free, which I understand, and if it wasn't this industry, sometimes I'd give things away for free, but that's not the environment we're in right now. We are in a race to get leads. And who are we competing with? Yes, a place for mom, because they spend way more money than you do. They have way deeper pockets than you do. And they are providing an experience for consumers that makes them stay home, period. So that's the alternative, is if you do not capture leads as much as possible, we'll talk about what to do with that. But if you don't, guess what? Chances of them coming back to your website and then converting later is about, 2 to 3%. And I'm probably making up that statistic for senior living specific, but 90% of people do not come back to your website, period. So you are taking a huge leap of faith, a huge chance that, okay, you had them on your website and they wanted to look at floor plans and pricing. They left, they got to see it for free. They didn't do anything. They left, they couldn't remember which place yours was. So now they went back and searched again. Or maybe they even did remember the name of your community. Now they went to a place for mom because they didn't know they were going to a place for mom. They thought they were going to your website, ended up at a place for mom, and now you're going to pay for that move-in. So that's my whole reasoning behind generating leads. And then you got to, but it's about nurturing them. You can't just generate leads and then ask them for a tour. It's like, asking someone on a date the first time, then, hey, do you want to get married? Hey, are you ready to get married now? You ready to get married now? Or do you court them? Do you seduce them? Do you persuade them? Do you nurture them? That's the difference. It's like we just want now, and that doesn't work very well.
Well, two things I want to get to. So the
Okay.
first thing is that speed to lead that's so important that you talk about, that's really critical. If you capture that name before a place for mom captures that name, you own that name, and a place from mom doesn't. And that's
now you can prove it. And now you can prove it.
And that's now you can prove it. That's right. And now you can prove it. Now you can prove it. So I really, I really like that. But let's talk for a little bit about, so I want to actually back up for 1 second. So you have an assessment tool that you put on pages. And so you have several ways that you're actually capturing people's information potentially.
Right.
And so you've got a care assessment, and for prices and floor plan, those are different, right?
Yeah, we've got a cost comparison tool. So compare your cost of living at home versus going into senior living. Most people don't compare apples to apples. They say, what's my rent? What's my rent over here? What's my mortgage and what's my rent? They don't factor in insurance and food and care and all these other things that they need to compare. So we help, create a balanced comparison there. We also have a lifestyle assessment more for independent, lower acuity, independent type of living situations. And then we have we have something that's similar to a chatbot, but it's not a chatbot. It's just a conversion widget. So people who are used to going to chatbots, they can see that, but then we can guide them to where they want to go instead of, hey, talk to our AI and don't get any answers and then ask to talk to a human and then leave. That's basically how those go. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what's the potential in terms of when you look at visitors, what's the potential for a number of visitors you can actually capture as a percentage?
Normal communities are capturing about 0 to 1% in there somewhere. We're capturing anywhere from 6 to 13% at some of our communities. And that's overall traffic. Once we get people to the specific tools, then we're capturing a lot higher percentage than that. And like I said, 10% of the people who are going through our highest top of the funnel tool, meaning we're not asking for much. We're asking for email. All we're giving them is floor plans and pricing. We're getting 10% of those people to schedule a tour just from using that tool alone.
Yeah. And we know there's a lot of sort of junk traffic that goes to everybody's website that's not really a prospect at all. Okay, so let's now talk a little bit about nurturing. One of the things I'm really curious about is text messaging. Welcome actually put out a report at the end of the year, and they do talk about text messaging as one of the outbounds, but it's a really tiny number. Can you just talk to me maybe about nurturing and where text and email and what else might fit in that?
Yeah. So, the nurturing process needs to be a multifaceted approach. Email, you're not going to get as high open rates with email. Text messages, you get about 95 to 99% open rates. So what it comes down to, and I forgot to mention this, the two articles that I was referring to, the other article that you wrote that people need to pay attention to is the reasons people don't move into senior living. Like those, I can't remember. I think you gave like 18 or 25 different reasons what people think about that. And you can do a quick search, or use ChatGPT and figure out why people don't go to live in. It's like, I don't want to go someplace to die. I don't want to sell my home and move into a nursing home. I don't want to become an invalid. It's all fear-based mentality. So as you're nurturing, you understand your community. Who do you serve and why do you serve those people? And what can you actually bring those people there before state to their after state? They don't want to go somewhere and die. So let's talk about that. Let's hit that head on. Like, let's talk about all the cool things that they're going to be doing at your community versus like, yeah, you're going to lay in this bed and basically, hopefully you'll make it 2 years. No, we're going to keep you thriving. We're going to keep you active. So it's understanding what your product is and then understanding who you serve and connecting those dots for them. And that's what the nurturing is about. It's not about trying to schedule a tour. Of course, that's what you want. Of course, but patience, like show patience over panic. If you're showing panic, that comes through. So text messaging, what can you send in text messages? Well, how about a cool video that you guys did that shows people thriving that very much contradicts the idea that you're coming here to die? And I get it, how weird that sounds, like you're coming here. No, but that's literally the conversation that is happening inside of people's heads. And so If you're dealing with the adult children, what challenges do they have? What fears do they have? How do you help them overcome the conversations that they're going to have with their mom and dad? If it's a spouse, how do you help them overcome some of the conversations and the fears that they have about moving their spouse in when they might be alone now? So there's all these different things that play into this, and it needs to be a very thoughtful approach. Remember, we are treating this like it is. A lot of communities are treating this, and I'm not, everybody doesn't do this, but many communities treat this like it is a very quick decision, a impulse buy. This is not an impulse buy. This is a relationship sale where you need to intimately get to know these consumers and their family members so that you can nurture them the right way. And then the last phase of when you got to close, you can create a tour experience that is actually something that is going to be memorable. Most of the times our tours are, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and it's an event. But in order to create an experience, you have to wrap emotion around that event so that they actually remember these things and find out things that they actually like. What do they like to do? How do you understand them more as an individual? That's how you nurture someone. It's not a cookie cutter approach. Listen, 90% of our residents are this age to this age. They probably like this. They probably like that. They probably like this. So let's just send them some information about this. And they're like, I don't like that at all. That's not what I like.
I want you to pay attention to who I am and what my needs are, because honestly, they're not going to be the same as yours, and they're not going to be the same as Jada, who's producing this show, right. And they're not going to be the same as anybody else's, right? And so, right. Because it's a way of signaling I care about you as a person.
That's how people expect to be marketed to these days, Steve. It's like we are bringing a very general approach to marketing. And in my world, general means boring. And so if you bring a general approach to marketing, just like going to every single website in senior living, it's general. They all look the same. That's why people can't remember you. You look identical to the person down the street. So if that's the case, how do you separate yourself? Well, you separate yourself by nurturing people. When people go through our marketing funnels, we have people saying all the time, thank you. Thank you. They didn't say thank you for the way you marketed to me, but that's what they're essentially saying to me. They're saying, thank you for how you handled this situation. Thank you for this. Thank you for providing this information. Thank you for the care assessment. This really helped. When you get people saying thank you, that's how you know you are nurturing. You are you're nurturing people through this process, and you're helping them make good decisions. Ultimately, that's what helps you condense that time frame down. That sales cycle that seems so big and so long, that's because you're not doing a very good job of saying, hey, we got you. We understand what's going on. Let's answer this question. Now it gets a little short. Let's answer this question. Oh, you need to do 2 tours? Fine. Come on in. Pop in whenever you want. Now it's here. And now that sales cycle is only 3 months versus 18 months and waiting for something bad to happen. And then they come in and then they stay for 6, 7, 8 months instead of, if they got in earlier before something bad happened, that length of stay now multiplied by 3 or 4, and how does that impact the bottom line of the business? And that's ultimately what our huge push here is, that we're transforming digital senior living through digital marketing built for families. But inside of that, like, we want to help the families out, but inside of helping the families, sales cycle gets smaller. You get people higher quality leads in the research phase that are going to have longer average lengths of stays. And that's really what we're trying to push here is, that a lot of the problems inside of senior living and marketing and occupancy and staffing are rooted in a digital marketing problem, because we're not leveraging simple tactics and strategies that are easily accessible to everyone.
Yeah. So on last Friday on Foresight TV, I had a guy who is not in the senior living space, but is very active in the social media world. But what was really unique about his conversation with him is that he's watched his parents find senior living for his grandparents. And we had quite a bit of conversation about the struggle. But the one thing that he said was that the websites were all the same. 2 things. The websites were all the same and unhelpful. I've got another friend who is sort of in an industry that's adjacent to senior living, who is searching for senior living for his parents. And so we've been text messaging back and forth, and his message is that it sucks. And because he doesn't feel like anybody is giving two things. He doesn't feel like anybody cares, and that anybody's giving him the information he needs. Yeah. And that's really what you're talking about, is changing that paradigm.
Well, when someone says that nobody cares, that's just simply not true, but that's their perception, right? And why does that happen? Why does that happen? Where does that manifest? That manifests from the way that you're marketing to them. That manifests from the sales and marketing directors feeling like they need to get you in for a tour right away. And if they don't, then you're out. That manifests from not understanding the conversation and the pain that someone is going through, and solving some of that pain and removing some of that concern and fear away from, whatever conversations are happening. If it's a person doing it all by themselves, that their brain is just spinning about this. They're consumed by it all day long. Then they're trying to take care of their kids too. They're trying to manage their job. They're also trying to take care of their parents. These are issues that can be solved. Like I said, when people say thank you for the way you marketed to me, that's because it doesn't mean that their website, they spent $100,000 on their website and their website was all like this cool new way. No, it just means it provided value. It means, oh, I got to move through this process. I answered some of my questions that I had. That's when people say thank you. That's all they want. If you're sitting there in your marketing saying, my community is great, you should come live in my community, versus, I know the pain you're going through, I understand what's happening with you, allow me to guide you through this process. Two totally different mindsets that the senior living communities, the vast majority of them, and this is part of the marketing company's fault too. We haven't pushed this enough. We haven't pushed marketing automation. We haven't pushed, differentiation. We haven't pushed some of these things, but it's all about the resident. It's resident-centric marketing. You need to understand what is going on with them and communicate to them. And when I say resident, I mean their families, whoever's making the decision for them, right? You need to understand your community and who typically is doing that. But it's all about them and what's going on with their situation. Yes, you're still having your amenities on your website. Yes, they can still schedule a tour. Yes, you still have information about what you do, but your calls to action are mainly, 9 out of 10 of them should be about, here's a burning question that you have, and we're going to help you solve it, and we're going to give you this value. Yes, you got to exchange your contact information. I mean, I was trying to read a news article the other day. I couldn't even read the article. I got 2 lines in, and I had to put my email in to read a news article. So this is how people expect to be marketed to. And when you throw in the a place for mom factor here, where if you don't get the leads fast enough, you're going to pay for it down the road, man, grab as many leads as you can and treat them the way you would want to be treated. And that's ultimately what we should be doing here. It's the same thing. It's like, have a community that you would like to put your mom in. Market like you would like to be marketed to. And if you can do those things, you're going to be really successful. And that you're going to see more people moving into senior living, and you're going to see people coming in earlier instead of later. And that, if we could just solve that problem where people don't wait at home till something bad happens. And I hear that all the time. We're waiting. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait until we fall on something, and then something really bad happens, right? Instead of coming in early where you can get taken care of, you can get socialization, you can get the care you need, and then now your life expectancy increases and your happiness increases. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
So we're about out of time, but I want to actually talk a little bit more about the sales funnel and what that sort of looks like. I'm on, so a couple things. I'm on the marketing list for maybe half a dozen different senior living communities, maybe more than that. Mm-hmm. And several things. One is that the frequency of that I get anything from them is really seems to be random, and it seems to be mostly something that the local marketing person wakes up one day and says, I'm going to write an email to everybody on my list, and they send it out, and they're doing the best they can. So I'm not critical of them at all, but there's sort of more science to this, right, in terms of creating a funnel and a cadence and those kinds of things.
100%. Yeah, there's an absolute science to it. I mean, you need to have a systematic approach to how you are communicating with people. And it's a mix of answering those questions, those burning questions that your residents have, your market has, the consumers have about moving in. And again, it depends on what type of community you have to determine what those are. But they're if you have an assisted living community, there's probably 10 to 12 questions that people are asking. Memory care, same thing. Independent living, same thing. There's not too much nuance here. And then, in the beginning, speed to lead, you're talking about speed to lead. Yeah, you're touching people a number of times. Where people make a mistake is if it is all about the community those first few times they're emailing people, all about us, all about us, all about us. That first email sequence, that first email that goes out, yeah, that's a time, we call it an indoctrination sequence. It's a time for you to tell everyone about yourself. It's kind of like that first date. Yeah, tell me about yourself. Okay, here you go. After that, now it's asking questions. Now it's assuming we know the questions that are in their mind. But yes, it is a systematic approach. And then obviously after 30 days, it starts to taper. After 60 days, it tapers more. And then after 90 days, it goes into more of a long-term nurture sequence where you're just staying relevant. How many times have we heard of people moving into a community down the street and they want to move back? Or they stayed at home, they didn't move anywhere, and 3 weeks later, now something bad happened, now they need to move. Who has been communicating with them through that process? They're not going to remember all of your names. They're not going to put them all on a Google sheet or a spreadsheet and have it all organized. No, they're going to go back to Google, do a search, or they're going to go to their text messages and say, oh, remember that video we saw? That video was so cool. Let's go there. Or they're going to go back to their email instead of going back to Google and searching again, and most likely getting in the place from on web. So that's the approach there. Like, you just have to understand who you're communicating with. And again, you also understand the typical sales cycle. So if a sales cycle is 105 days, well, time that thing out and then go to a long-term nurture after that. It's just understanding these things. But it's part of the challenge is most people aren't thinking that far in ahead. The reason it's random for you is because it's like, oh, I need to email my list. So what should we say today? And then send. And then that's what you get.
Yeah.
And
again,
yeah.
these are salespeople who are sending them out. They're not marketing people, and they're in a hurry, right, and they've got lots of things. And that's why, I assume you know this, but we have an indoctrination email that if you sign up through our form, on our website, we have an indoctrination email. You get a sequence. You get 3 emails from us, and you know who wrote those for us? Scott did. That's right. That's right. We probably ought to go back and revisit those because it's been a long time. But they're really good. And they just help people to get to know who we are and what we're passionate about and how we're going to help others. And then, of course, we email every day because of the nature of our business. Probably don't want to do that forever. But actually thinking about these things and doing it from a marketing perspective and what people need is so important. Scott, we are about out of time. Tell us how we find you. We've got the links up, but
listen, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me at theconversionformula.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. We're publishing all types of video content coming up soon. We're going to launch a podcast here soon, but if you're really interested in finding out more about what we do, go to the website, theconversionformula.com, and schedule a meeting with me.
Yeah, and they will just help you get more leads and take more of the visitors to your website and turn them into prospects. And that means higher occupancy, better revenue. You'll sleep better at night, and the world will be wonderful. So with that, thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you, Steve.